If there's one thing that this life off-grid has taught us, it's how small we are in the vastness of the world. We are always at the mercy of Mother Nature's strength, but also held in her abundance. It's been a scary week here in the rainforest. Living the isolated life that we do, we're always aware that in an emergency, we're all on our own. But when disaster threatens, this becomes even more clear. Tropical Cyclone Alfred has been sitting off the coast, and after days of preparing for the worst, we bunkered down, not sure what to expect.
This is honestly terrifying. There's these noises outside of things banging and crashing, and the winds, they're crazy. I've never experienced anything like this before. And it's so scary because the cyclone hasn't actually hit yet, and they're even saying it might upgrade to a Category 3 before it hits. And then the winds might last not for 6 hours like it was previously predicted, but maybe for days right up through Saturday. And so we're just sitting here in trepidation, just quite scared about what's to come. We're kind of trying to stay away from any windows and just try to get through tonight, see what happens. It's even more scary because after the event, they're predicting that there might be a low which could bring thousands of mils of rain, which after the last flood event, I don't know what will happen to the landscape. I don't know.
So while the winds aren't too wild, we're going to go and just check the farm damage. We're going to see if the neighbours are okay and just do a quick walk. Fingers crossed all is alright.
At this stage, we had no idea how bad the damage from the cyclone might be, and we only had this small window in between strong winds that we could try to explore out of the house. That day, we didn't get too far before the wind started building again and we ran home. But when it was finally safe, our uncle helped to chainsaw all of the trees over the road. But the access is still broken where the creek crosses the road. During the cyclone, the ducks slept in the bathroom. When the winds weren't too strong, I would sneak outside to clean their container while they bathed. They were naughty and stinky, but just so cute.
Oh, splashing. We talked about this, no splashing allowed. I know.
The morning after the worst of the storm had passed, the brightest pink sunrise spread across the mountains. The landscape had felt so unsure and fragile, but then this deep pink glow felt like a healing touch, a sign to say that everything was okay.
We've been bunkering down inside for days and it hasn't been safe to come outside, but there's a little break now and the beautiful black sapote tree has fallen down and the papaya tree, but so far nothing else crazy. A few trees and everything looks a bit sad. The goats are very sad.
Soon helicopters began to circle, checking everyone was safe and following the power lines to make sure that no obstructions caused any threats. At this stage, we hadn't had electricity for days. It had been unsafe to go outside, and the radio that we could listen to was saying that this cyclone might be worse than the devastating floods that we had in 2022. But finally, as Cyclone Alfred hit land and the worst of the rains and winds had passed, the system downgraded, and we realized that everything was going to be okay. Over the week, we had had over 800 millimeters of rain and the biggest winds that we've ever experienced, and honestly, we were so scared, remembering the devastation and lives lost in the last flood. So as the sun rises and the storm clouds disperse into mist, the relief we feel is deeper than the golden rays of sun rising over the horizon. It feels like the whole landscape has taken a deep sigh of relief. The avocado tree still stands on the highest hill, and the guavas still feed us. The rising sun still reaches over the hills, and summer seeps into the familiarity of autumn.
We've come up the hill in first light to see the damage on top of the highest hill because this is where the winds really reached and would have probably been their wildest. And we've got the first bit of sun, which feels really special. Having sun on your skin again is such a feeling after a big cyclone like that. So far there's a few broken trees, but we haven't seen anything too big, but they're probably still to come.
Fallen trees and branches are scattered across the mountains, but the golden light feels like such a privilege after days being cooped inside with ferocious winds outside. The howling currents kept us awake for nights on end, and we all huddled in the safest room. We didn't know if, when we emerged, this landscape would be completely different, broken and shattered like last time. But we were so lucky, and after a few days the winds calmed, and a few days later again the rain subsided, and the valley stood as it always had, mostly unchanged. The sun on my face and the gifts of the fruit picked straight from the trees, these joys feel so much more potent. So I pull weeds and I appreciate the view, and I realize the beauty of each small thing. After a storm passes, you first notice the damage, seeing each new job appear on your endless list. You see the beautiful big old trees fallen, the fences that need mending, and the branches scattered everywhere.
We lost a fence here, but I don't think it'll be too bad. We might just have to cut this and then bring the wire back up. I don't think it snapped, so that's good.
But then you notice the beauty, the beams of sun weaving through the trees and mist, the mountains laid across the skyline, the horizon mostly unchanged with only small gaps of missing trees. You see the spiders' webs and the tiny mushrooms, the droplets of rain held in the leaves, and autumn's first guavas gracing the orchards. Suddenly you find gratitude all around. The storm has passed, so we move through this too. And the starfruit are ready. This always feels like the beginning of autumn, when these bright fruit grow everywhere across the farm. The sheep were in the biggest paddock over the cyclone. It has their shed in it, but we were so worried about them being out in the weather, and Julia almost convinced us to bring every sheep and goat inside too. But they were safe out in the paddock, and I'm so glad that we didn't have the chaos of 30 animals in the house.
This banana fell in the big winds. It was one of the first trees that we noticed down, and it had a big bunch of fruit on it, so I'm just going to check if that's still edible or if it hadn't filled out enough. They're too small. What a waste. I think the goats will like them, so I'll feed them to them. This big black sapote tree was one of my favorite trees, I think. It's always so abundant with fruit. You can see it's already fruiting. These won't be ready until next September, October, November, but they're already so big. But I don't think that we'll have any black sapotes this year because the whole tree came down in a storm, which is really devastating. This tree our dad planted probably 20 years ago, and it just snapped, or the tree roots just kind of fell out. But we're gonna try, maybe we can lift it back up or do something, try to save it.
The wind seemed to really hit our ridge the worst. This is where most of the trees came down, and we felt the whole house shake under the force.
I've climbed this tree so many times before, but now I'm sitting on it. It didn't snap, so that's a good thing. It kind of just like fell over and the roots couldn't hold it anymore. So we're wondering, maybe if we cut it all back so that it doesn't have much foliage and then try to lift it somehow, I don't know how, then maybe we could try to save the tree? I don't know. This papaya fell and then hit this beautiful old orange tree and completely snapped it in half. So that's really sad. I was really excited for those oranges in the winter, but I don't think there'll be any. That'll make a good salad. This macadamia tree our opa would have planted 60 years ago and it fell over in the big winds, so it's another really sad one. This plantain came down in the winds, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to plant it over in my garden and spread these plantains even further because they might be my favourite type of banana that we grow.
Two longan trees also fell. Again, their whole root structure was forced over. We'd love to try to trim them back and then somehow lift them back into place, but we don't know how.
We're going for a hike up into the banana plantations to see how they did in the cyclone because I think the winds really hit them.
At the very top of the valley, there are these massive plantations of bananas. Craig farms at the very top, and the journey here is treacherous. First we go up the valley, past all the fallen trees from the cyclone, and then we walk up and up and up until we meet Craig with his ute. The ride is bumpy as we venture further into the edge of the mountains, but once you get to the top, the views are worth the rough ride. Today, Craig is showing us the devastation of the cyclone on his patch.
So is this where like wind currents came through?
Well, can you see how they're snapped?
Yeah.
They're not actually pushed over, they're actually snapped halfway up.
Yeah.
Gusts of
Yeah.
wind just sheared across the top. But I think the wind swirls around inside these valleys. It comes over the ridges, gets caught and twists and turns around. Broken the bananas.
Oh.
And it's broken them too early.
No.
That's a couple of months away, so it hasn't had a chance to fill
You
out.
picture all of the effort to plant each of these and then the wind just comes when they've got fruit on them and knocks them all down. How devastating that must be for the farmers. Can't imagine. You can really see the direction of the wind. Whoosh down. Terrifying.
The storm's winds flattened big patches, and this devastation makes it so hard for these local organic farmers who already struggle to compete against big commercial companies.
And the other thing you've got to learn to do is cut the end of the bunch. You get less fruit but bigger fruit, nicer fruit, yeah.
Okay.
And the bunch matures.
Then I would be able to hold them and I wouldn't drop them so many times.
That's a good point too.
Yeah.
And the bunch will.
Craig farms organically, and you can see how his practices of working with the earth protect his fruit from disease, pests, and even these cyclonic winds.
That's one of the benefits of me not spraying herbicides is weed. That's a weed. They pop up all over the place. Yeah, so it's just become a good thing.
Yeah, a good weed. One of those weeds that control.
His farm works less
Bigger
like a
and better
monoculture, but more like an
than a whole bunch of
ecosystem,
little
where
ones.
each plant has a different role.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes act as a ground cover, the tamarillos and guavas bring biodiversity, the avocado's deep roots hold the soils and bring nutrients from deep underground. Everything has a role, just like the rainforest ecosystem. Conventional farming relies on heavy herbicide usage, which is terrible for the soils, the wildlife, and our own health. Craig avoids this by utilizing nature's herbicide, cover crops.
Push it together.
No weeds are able to come up beneath it.
Look at that little worm. See, this is the most exciting thing about cover crops.
These sweet potatoes cover the ground so that other plants are smothered, and while they're at it, they add nutrients to the soil and protect against erosion. Craig also uses chocos as cover crops.
Okay.
You stand on the back veranda and you throw them.
That sounds a lot of fun.
Banana farms are intense places, and you often find yourself just falling down a very steep hole.
Wombat. You didn't ding your shin or anything?
No, I'm all good.
I don't know where that goes.
I could have just kept going forever, turned up at our place maybe.
Craig is teaching me many lessons about banana farming that I'm still very new at.
Oh, one hand. I think I've been using 2 hands, haven't I? I've been doing everything wrong.
We'll get there.
Alright. I'm only on my 3rd bunch, so...
Up here, Craig built a little hideaway shack that might have the best views of all of the land.
Built, yeah.
It's the coolest banana shack I've ever seen.
No, it is literally a shack. I just don't have the time.
That's the dream. The more shacky it is, the better it is.
Well, it's definitely shacky.
You can see by our shack. No way.
The creek is full of crystal geodes everywhere, and Craig has collected so many.
I like how it sits. I like all the recycled doors.
Oh, mate, don't. Nothing's measured.
The tracks in the bananas are like winding mazes, and it's easy to get lost between the mountains. Craig and many other local farmers sell their fruit at the farmers market, but for the next few weeks they're going to be really struggling with the devastation of this cyclone. So if you're local, get down to the markets and support your local farmers. The banana shed is where all of the magic happens, and he prepares his fruit for the market. And as Craig says, there's always a little friend hiding in each bunch.
Can you see him?
I see it! Big huntsman.
Whoa!
Oh, nice.
Ron.
That's a big one. Julian got bitten once. So
Oh yeah. That bite check.
oh, why are we doing it then? Thanks. Well,
Don't like
it didn't
you.
want to go on my hand, so I won't do it. That's my excuse.
You're not a banana
I like it's on
farmer
the
yet.
knife, but that's pretty cool.
Well done.
It's not great.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go onto the chocolate. There you go. Am I a banana farmer now?
Wow.
Do you reckon I can get my award in banana farming? We start
Well
three.
done.
There you go. Back to your bananas. Yay! Actually, there's a
This is lemongrass. This is always a good seller at the farmer's market.
I think the biggest lesson that I'm learning from the banana industry is that it's a lot about strength, and as a pretty small woman with not a lot of muscle, I don't know if this is something that I'm ever going to be good at.
This is my problem, that I'm not very good at lifting things.
Alright, keep going.
Oh, how many do you do of these, like, a day?
Couple of 100 kilos.
Oh my god.
But apparently I've been harvesting my bunches the wrong way, so I'm getting a lesson in banana farming.
When you're pulling this trash off, pull it out.
Oh?
So what you want to do is going to use the full length of the knife.
Okay. Oh.
You're going to reach up as high as you can. Not as big as yours.
That's my main problem.
That's it. That keeps it off the ground.
Nice.
Keeps it off the
Wow.
ground.
Okay.
Put it up on the shoulder. You walk back.
Well, mine were bigger than that. That's my reason. That's
Oh,
my excuse.
I'm going to find you a big one if you like. That was a bit of a small one. I'm so ashamed you've cut a bigger bunch of bananas than me.
Who's laughing now?
Separating your bananas and spreading the suckers is super important and an amazing endless resource.
So I've turned that one now into 3.
Thank you so much to our patrons. Your contribution helps us to plant trees, clear invasive weeds, and care for the earth.